Imagine winning every survival contest there ever was, before you're even born. No predators coming for you. No winter, no famine, no disease waiting in the water. That's not a hypothetical. That's exactly what happened to 8 mice in a Maryland lab in 1968. A scientist named John Calhoun gave them a fully automated apartment building, food that physically could not run out, water that physically could not run out. He gave that colony everything 4 billion years of evolution ever asked for. 5 years later, he was standing in front of an empty room. Not one of them had starved. Not one had frozen. Not one had caught a single disease anyone could find. And here's the part almost nobody gets right when they retell this story. The species was a population of laboratory mice. The location was a steel enclosure built by the National Institute of Mental Health. The man behind it was a scientist named John Calhoun, and he called his creation universe 25. Picture a room about 8 feet square, lined with 256 private apartments built directly into the walls. That space could comfortably hold 3,800 mice with room to spare. Calhoun released 8 mice into it and then did something most scientists never get to do. He waited 5 years and wrote down everything that happened. For the first 100 days, almost nothing remarkable occurred. The mice settled territory, found mates, and built a normal, functioning society. Then the population took off. It doubled every 55 days. Babies everywhere, bonds everywhere. This was, by every visible measure, a thriving civilization. But somewhere inside that growth, a clock had already started counting down, and nobody inside Universe 25 could see it. By day 560, the population had climbed past 2,000 mice, still well under the 3,800 the enclosure could physically support. There was still food in dozens of feeding stations. There was still water. There was still empty floor space, and that is the exact moment birth rates didn't slow down. They stopped. Some mothers abandoned their litters mid-birth. Others turned on their own newborns. Adult mice, with food sitting untouched nearby, began eating the dead. Something had broken that had nothing to do with hunger. And then came the strangest part of the entire experiment, the part Calhoun's own team gave a name to because they didn't know what else to call it. A new generation of males appeared. They never fought. They never competed for mates. They never defended territory. They simply ate, slept, and groomed their own fur for hours at a time every single day for the rest of their lives. Because they never engaged in anything that could hurt them, their coats stayed flawless. Not one scar, not one scratch. Calhoun's researchers called them the beautiful ones. They looked perfect. They were, by every behavioral measure, already gone, present in the enclosure, but absent from the society around them. Meanwhile, the males who couldn't secure any place in the social order at all were pushed onto the open floor, crowded into silent, tense clusters that would erupt without warning into brutal, pointless violence against neighbors who had done nothing to provoke it. 2 completely different responses to the same impossible problem. One side gave up by disappearing inward, the other side gave up by exploding outward. By 1973, Universe 25 reached a population of exactly 0. Here is the detail almost every retelling of this story leaves out, and it's the detail that actually explains everything. Calhoun never ran out of food. He never ran out of water. He never ran out of physical space. What he ran out of was something far less obvious: available roles. In a small group, every individual has a job, a rank, a reason to compete, and a reason to belong. As the population grew, those roles ran out long before the floor space did. Status became impossible to win because every position was already taken. Territory became impossible to claim because every inch was already contested by someone else. When winning becomes mathematically impossible, something deep in the mammalian brain simply stops trying to play the game at all. That shutdown isn't unique to mice. It runs on hardware your brain still has. Every time your personal space gets violated, your amygdala, the brain's built-in alarm system, sends out a threat signal. That signal triggers a chemical chain reaction ending in a flood of cortisol into your bloodstream. A short burst of cortisol sharpens you. It keeps you alive in a real emergency. A cortisol flood that never turns off does something else entirely. It physically shrinks the part of your brain responsible for memory. It drains the part of your brain responsible for self-control. And it quietly turns down your ability to feel rewarded by other people at all. shrunken memory, drained self-control, a reward system running on empty. That combination has another, much more familiar name. Long before cities existed, your brain was built around a very specific ceiling. Picture every person whose face, history, and relationship to you your brain can hold on to at once, with real weight, real memory, real trust. That number tops out at roughly 150 people. Every face beyond that number pushes an old one out to make room. For almost all of human history, that wasn't a problem, because the average ancient group held somewhere between 30 and 50 people, nested safely under that ceiling. Now, picture a single rush hour subway ride. In 20 minutes, you can pass more strangers than your ancestors saw in an entire year. Your amygdala cannot tell the difference between an ancient threat and a stranger standing 8 inches away on a train. It tags both exactly the same way, every single time, all day long. Now here's where this needs to be said clearly, because this is exactly where good science usually turns into bad headlines. Jumping straight from mice trapped in a steel box to humans living in cities is a leap, and a risky one. Calhoun's mice were nearly identical genetically, completely unable to leave, and almost certainly dealing with disease and inbreeding effects that had nothing to do with crowding alone. Humans build something mice never could: rules, manners, privacy norms, personal space conventions. Researcher Jonathan Friedman proved in 1975 that high density alone doesn't cause harm. It only amplifies what's already there, for better or worse, depending on whether people still feel in control of their own boundaries. So, no, your city is not Universe 25, but we built something new that mice never had to deal with at all. Every notification, every message, every scroll puts you in contact with more potential relationships than your brain can ever actually track. Your phone gives you the social density of a city inside your pocket, with none of the buffers a real city has. Researchers scanning the brains of people raised in dense urban environments found something specific: a weaker connection between the amygdala and the exact brain region whose entire job is calming it back down. Years in a crowded environment rewires that volume control permanently. We may be doing the same thing to ourselves now, just through a screen instead of a sidewalk, one notification at a time. A 2022 study found something almost absurdly simple. 1 hour walking through a forest measurably lowers amygdala activity. The same hour spent walking a busy city street does not move the needle at all. A wall, a closed door, a small private corner. Each one interrupts the constant low-grade threat scanning that crowding switches on. And the strongest protection of all may be the simplest, staying close to that ancient number. A circle of people somewhere under 150 who actually know your name. Calhoun didn't build Universe 25 to prove that crowding kills. He built it to find out what happens to a mind when every physical need is met. But the roles that give a life meaning quietly run out. 3,800 apartments, 2,000 bodies, and somehow, still, no room left for any of them to matter. Your brain runs the same calculation every single day, on a train platform, in a group chat with 400 unread messages, in a room full of people you'll never actually get to know. It's just better at hiding the answer than a mouse ever was. So here's the only question worth asking. When was the last time you actually felt like you mattered to the room you were standing in?